Shavuos Daf Gimel Amud Beis, cannot versus may not. Shavua shelo achal ve'achal nevelot. Let's take the idea a little bit further that we started working on yesterday, and that is to be able to internalize, firstly, an idea, that an idea doesn't remain external to oneself, that one's able to internalize an idea, that one's able to internalize, whether it's an idea of the Torah or in the general world, the same thing, so it becomes your idea, not the idea of something outside of you. And that applies even to halachot, that one's doing the halakha not just because it says somewhere in some book that you can't do it, it becomes part of who you are, and that the motivating force is an interior motivating force. It's not an external motivating force. And we'll take that idea a little bit further today. And in so doing, what we're looking at is two lenses through which to look at a situation. The situation we're talking about is in the Mishnah on the previous daf. Shvuah shelo ochal. A person says, I make a shvuah, I take an oath, I'm not going to eat anything for the next 24 hours or whatever. Va'achal nevelot u'trefot shkatzim u'ramashim chayav. And he ate nevelot and trefot and shkatzim, he ate all sorts of things that you're not allowed to eat, he's chayav. But the Mishnah, just before that, the preceding part of the Mishnah is, achal ochlin she'enan ru'uyin la'achila, v'shata ochlin, v'shata mashkin she'enan ru'uyin l'shtiya patur. If he ate or drank things which are not fit for consumption, he ate dirty water, he drank dirty water, or he ate some sand, that's not included. That's clearly not included. When he said, I'm not going to eat, he didn't mean I'm not going to put anything into my mouth. He meant I'm not going to eat food. And if he ate sand and dirty water, that's not food and drink, and that wasn't included. He hasn't broken his vow. But what happens if he eats nevelus or treifus? He eats treif things. So it's something that's not fit for eating. He's not supposed to be eating them. But they're edible. Is that considered food or not? So when a person talks, how do you categorize treif food for a Jew? Is treif food for a Jew good, nourishing food? It's just you're not allowed to eat it. Or is treif food for a Jew not food at all? That's really what this piece of Gemara looks at. So the Mishnah says chayav, the Tanna Kama says chayav, nevelus treifus you're chayav for, you've transgressed your oath if you eat something treif. For Rabbi Shimon poter, and Rabbi Shimon says it's patur. We'll look at the Rashi in a moment. Our Gemara starts off and says, I don't understand the Mishnah. The first law that in the Mishnah, in this piece of the Mishnah, says that if you said, I'm not going to eat anything, and you ate something inedible, patur, you're patur. It doesn't count. That's not a transgression, because what you ate is not categorized as food. And then in the next verse, she said, but if you eat treif, then you're chayav. Why would inedible material not be considered food, and a good treif steak is considered food? That's a strange question the Gemara is asking. There's such a difference. Isn't the difference obvious? One is food, one isn't food. What's the difference? Says Rashi, Kasal Kadatach. No, when the Gemara puts this question, Nevelu treif nami ochlim she'enam ru'uyin hein. At this point, the Gemara does not see a distinction between sand and a treif steak. They're equally inedible for a Jew. That's the position the Gemara is coming from. And we'll understand it more deeply, because that's a strange position. Well, if you're having a difficulty with the Mishnah, isn't it obvious that that's not what the Mishnah means? And then the Gemara goes on to say, the difference is how he worded his shvuah. So the Gemara doesn't say, well, there's an obvious difference. One's talking about inedible and one's talking about edible, but you can't eat it. The Gemara continues with this assumption that the two are the same, and the difference, the Gemara says, is in how he worded his oath, which we don't need to go into at the moment. What I'm interested in is this assumption that treif food and inedible food are categorized in the same category. When a person says, I'm not going to eat for the next 24 hours. If he eats treif, it's as if he ate something inedible. Treif is inedible for a Jew. That's what is that assumption? Now Rashi says it's a kasal kadaitach, it's only an assumption, because on the next page the Gemara retracts from that assumption, which is why Rashi explains the Mishnah as different. And if you look up in the Rashi on the Mishnah, V'achal nevelot chayav, why have you transgressed if you ate something that's treif? Says Rashi, deru'uyin hein la'achila, because they are edible. It's true that during this period, this piece of Gemara on Daf Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph Amud Bet that we're learning, the Gemara is adopting an assumption that treif is inedible. And as I said, we're going to understand why, what the meaning of that assumption, why is there even such an assumption? But in conclusion, the Gemara comes to the conclusion that treif is edible. V'aryehu derevia alayu. This is an idea that the Gemara uses. If we have in Masechta Eruvin, we don't often have this wording, although the concept is a clear one. V'aryehu derevia alayu. It's just that there's a lion sitting on it. You can eat it if you want to take the lion on. Eat it at your own risk. It's not that it's inedible. Just you can't get near it. You can't get near it because it's dangerous to get near it. And that phrase, that metaphor is so important to understand in terms of what we're discussing. And it links to the famous Sifra, where Omer Rabbi Gamliel says, Lo yomar adam ef shilech ol basa b'chalav, ef shilil b'shatnes. Even in matters of chukim, in matters of laws, or particularly in matters of chukim, of laws of the Torah that are not based on rational reason. Or yesterday we learned all the laws, the whole observance of the Torah is rational. The reason to observe the Torah is rational. And all has to come from a rational place. But even those laws which don't appear to be obviously irrational, like milk and meat, not mixing milk and meat, or not wearing linen and wool in the same garment, a person shouldn't say, oh, I could never eat meat and milk. I get sick at the thought of it. Shouldn't say such a thing. And I would love to have meat and milk. Absolutely, I could. What can I do? It's also, Hashem said no. It almost sounds like the opposite of what we were saying yesterday. Person shouldn't be internal. Oh, I couldn't eat meat and milk. What can I do? The Rebbeinu Shalom, okay, so God said, it says in the Shulchan Aruch, you can't, so I can't. That's how one would normally explain the Sifra, which goes against everything we learned yesterday. But the key to it is in that metaphor. The key to it is in the metaphor of the lion. Why use that metaphor? Why does Rashi simply not say, Deru'uyin hein la'achila, v'avinu shebashamayim gozar aleinu? They're fit for eating, but the Rebbeinu Shem said no. Why does Rashi give this image of a lion sitting on the food? And in understanding that metaphor and the Havamina in our Gemara, we'll understand the difference between Yirah Shamayim and Yirah Chet. Tomorrow we say Birkas HaChodesh. And in Birkas HaChodesh we ask for Hashem Chaim sheyesh bahem Yirat Shamayim v'Yirat Chet. What's the difference? Why is Yirat Shamayim not enough? If I've got a life of Yirat Shamayim, do I have to have Yirat Chet? Yirat Shamayim means fear of God, fear of heaven, which is the awe of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Yirat Chet is terror, is fear. Why do I add that? And if I do, surely the order should be the other way around. I should have a Chaim of Yirat Chet, like the Rambam says in the beginning of Yesodei HaTorah. The Rambam talks about Yirat HaOnesh, being afraid of punishment, and being afraid of Yirat HaRomamut, and having God in awe, and how it's a much higher level to be in awe of God than to be fearful of the punishment. So then it should be the other way around. Yirat Chet, I should have fear of the punishment, fear of the sin. But I should be even more than that. Yirah Shamayim. In addition to that, I should have Yirah Shamayim. The wording of the Tefillah teaches us that Yirat Chet is a higher level than Yirat Shamayim. Yirat Chet does not mean fear of punishment. It doesn't say Chaim Sheish Baim Yirat Shamayim v'Yirat Onesh, that I should have a life of fear of heaven and fear of punishment. It doesn't say that. Fear of punishment is the lowest level. That's not what we're aiming for. Yirat Shamayim, that's a higher level. Wow, I'm in awe of the Rebbeinu Shalom. I don't want to do anything against the will of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And then there's a higher level, Yirat Chet. What does Yirat Chet mean? If I've already got Yirat Shamayim, what does Yirat Chet add? Here we come to the metaphor of the lion. If there's a pile of food and there's a lion sitting on the food, what stops you from going to the lion? Let's get back to the metaphor of the policeman in Rome. Is that because there's a sign there? If you go to the game reserves, to the more civilized game reserves, then the areas where the cars stop and you'll often see lions and dangerous animals coming out to drink and to eat, there'll often be a sign there that says, don't get out of your car. And there are people who do get out of their cars, even with the sign there. There are people who get out of their cars to take photographs, and they get eaten. There have been many cases of that in South Africa and other parts of Africa. They get eaten. Do you need the sign? There's a lion sitting there. You want to take a photograph of the lion. You want to get closer. But you don't. What stops you from doing it? Yirāt ha'onesh is there's a sign that says don't do it, and if I do it, I could get fined. I could get a ticket. I could get into trouble with the police, so I better not get out of my car. That's the lowest level. The other is I don't need a sign. That lion is there. I'm not going anywhere near. In fact, I'm closing the windows of my car. I'm not getting anywhere near. I want to look, but I don't want to be close. I'm terrified because there's a lion there. That's why I'm terrified. I don't need a sign. That's what Arya Hu de Revia Alayu is. When an observant Jew looks at a situation that involves an Aveirah, doing something against the will of Hashem, when an Orthodox Jew looks at a piece of tray food, he doesn't look at it and say, disgusting. He looks at it and says, delicious, but I'm not going near it. I'm not going to touch it. Because it's dangerous. I feel the danger. It's dangerous to my soul. How do I know it's dangerous to my soul? Because Avisha b'shamayim gozer alai. Hashem wouldn't have precluded it if it wasn't dangerous for my soul. So yes, as we learned yesterday, it's the Torah that reveals the Svarad. Remember, if we don't have a Posuk, says Tosfos, I wouldn't know the Svara. So I need a Posuk, I need the Torah to tell me this is dangerous. But now that I know it's dangerous, what is the Mechayev? What drives me not to eat the meat? Is it that it says in the Shulchan Aruch, don't eat it? Is that what it means? Or is it Arya Revia Alei? Is it because there's a lion sitting on it? I realize if I eat this piece of meat, my neshama gets destroyed by this lion, by this destructive negative force, which I wouldn't have been aware of if it weren't that the Torah told me. There was a case, I remember as a child, a man taking a photograph of himself standing next to a tree with the notice there, don't get out of your car. And his wife took a photograph, and when he got home, he showed everybody the photograph of him standing next to the sign that says, don't go out of your car. And in the photograph, there was a leopard in the tree, which he didn't even see when he was there. And it was an amazing photograph. But the sign tells you that there's a leopard, that there could be a leopard in the tree. It's not you don't get out of your car because of the sign. You don't get out of the car because there might be a leopard in the tree. How do you know there might be a leopard in the tree? The sign tells you that there are leopards in trees around here. But it's not the sign that forces you not to get out of your car. It's the same with halakha. The halakha, it's not the paragraph in Shulchan Aruch that makes me do or not do something. The paragraph in Shulchan Aruch reveals to me what the true reality of the situation is. And that in true reality, there's a lion sitting on this, and it's dangerous for my neshama. Just as poison is dangerous for my body, so treif is dangerous for my neshama, it's dangerous for my soul. Yes, I wouldn't have known that without the Torah, but now that the Torah has told me, I know that. And that's why the metaphor is not, what should I do? Hashem told me not to. No, the metaphor is Aryahu de Revia Alayu. So that explains now also why we have a Havamin on Daf Chaf Gimel, where the Gemara assumes that they're the same. Because the Gemara starts from the assumption of reality. In reality, for a Jewish person, there is no difference between sand and treif meat. They're equally inedible. If you saw reality, you would not come near either of them, because you would know the one is dangerous and the other one is disgusting. But the fact is, whether you don't come because of danger or because of disgusting, they're both internal, instinctual reactions. It's neither of them are because it says, I won't eat this sand, I won't eat this drink this dirty water. Why? Because it's disgusting. What? Who told you it's disgusting? Where does it say in the Torah that it's disgusting? I don't need the Torah to tell me it's disgusting. I won't eat this food either, this tray food. Why? Because it will destroy my neshama. Now here, as it happens, the reason you know that is because the Torah told you. But now that you know it, it's an internal instinct that doesn't let you eat the tray. That's why the Gemara is willing to make an assumption at first. Let's explore the assumption where there is no difference between something which is asur and something which is ma'us, something which is disgusting to eat and something which is forbidden to eat. Later on, the Gemara comes to the conclusion there is a difference. In laws of Nedarim, When the person says, I'm not going to eat any food for the next 24 hours, he means food which is classified by ordinary people as food. He's not talking about the spiritual qualities. And yes, it's true that nevelu treifa he can't eat, and he doesn't want to eat, but the reason is because the lion's sitting on it. The reason is not because it's inherently disgusting to him. And as we've taken it further, the metaphor of the lion, true, it's not because it's inherently disgusting, but it is inherently fearful. It does arouse the instinct of fear in him. And that's what yirאת chet means. Yirאת shamayim is, I don't want to do it because it says in the Shulchan Aruch that the Rebbeinu Shem doesn't want me to eat the steak. So I'm in awe of the Rebbeinu Shem. That's a wonderful standard. But there's a higher level. Yes, the Rebbeinu Shalom tells me not to eat it. Why not? Ask the why question, because the why question is what makes the halacha internal for you. The why question is what gives meaning. The why question is what makes it personal. Why does the Rebbeinu Shem say don't eat it? Because I can sense that this is not something that would be good for my neshama. This is something that could contaminate my neshama, could damage my neshama, and the Rebbeinu Shem, in his kindness, concern, care, and love for me and for the neshama he gave me, warns me that this is not a good thing to do. And I don't do it because of the desire to preserve my neshama, not just because it says somewhere in the Torah that this is not something to be done.